Reprogramming your thoughts with Stoic philosophy. Maybe you're tired of trying, tired of overthinking, feeling too much, wanting to control everything, and achieving nothing. You feel like your mind has become a battlefield, repetitive thoughts, anxiety as the soundtrack, decisions that always seem wrong. It's like living inside an emotional labyrinth where every exit just leads back to chaos. But what if I told you there's a different way to live? Not a magic formula, nor toxic optimism, but an ancient path, steady, silent, a path of wisdom that has crossed centuries and reached you here to speak to you. Stoic philosophy isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming free. It's about facing life head-on, even when it hurts. It's about learning to master what's within so you're not a slave to what's outside. It's a personal transformation so profound that it changes the way you breathe, choose, react, love, lose, grow, and yes, suffer too, but in a different way. You suffer without sinking, because there's virtue in that, there's power in that, there's success in that. The success of being whole even when the world is falling apart. If you've ever felt small in the face of life or suffocated by thoughts you can't silence, this video is for you, and I'm not here to motivate you with empty phrases. I'm here to walk beside you through 13 topics that will change the way you think, feel, and act. These are steps to reprogram your mind with emotional control, mental organization, and a growth mindset based on virtue. Not ego, not applause, but inner coherence. Get ready to hear truths you may have avoided for a long time, but also prepare to rediscover a kind of strength you forgot you had. Because everything you need to change is already inside you. It just needs to be learned how to use, and that's what we'll do together. One word at a time, one silence at a time, one choice at a time. And at the end of this video, I want you to write in the comments a sentence that sums up your journey here. Something that comes from within. It can be short, it can be intense, but let it be yours. That way, we'll know it wasn't just another video. It was the beginning of a rewriting. Yours. Topic 1. Master yourself before trying to master the world. There's a silent battle that happens every day, within each of us. And it's not against the world, nor against fate, nor against circumstances. It's against our own inner chaos. Thoughts that trample reason, emotions that explode without permission, desires that lie disguised as needs. The true Stoic warrior doesn't wear steel armor, but forges the spirit in the crucible of inner discipline. Mastering yourself isn't about suppressing pain, but learning to listen to it without becoming it. It's the kind of strength that doesn't make headlines, but changes destinies. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced wars and betrayals. And yet, in his moments of solitude, he wrote about the importance of controlling one's own mind. He said that, "The soul takes on the color of its thoughts." What a powerful metaphor, isn't it? Because that's it. Every thought you feed is a brushstroke that paints your inner world. If the mind is clouded, the world seems more hostile. But if there's mental organization, even the chaos outside bows to the serenity within. That's why Stoicism teaches you to conquer the hardest empire, yourself. Maybe you want to change the world, make justice, fix what's wrong. But listen to me, the world out there responds to what vibrates within. If your heart is restless, your decisions will be rash. If your mind is undisciplined, your actions will carry the weight of imbalance. And how can you change the world if you don't even know yourself inside? Mastering yourself isn't isolation, it's preparation. A silent step so that, when the time comes to act, you don't bring your personal storm into others' lives. Because before anything else, there's still something to understand about what is truly under your control. Topic 2. What's under your control? The key to Stoic freedom. There's immense relief when you discover what you no longer need to carry. It's like dropping a bag full of stones that someone placed in your hands, but you never questioned why. Stoicism, with its brutal simplicity, offers this liberation, the clear distinction between what is and isn't under our control. Thoughts, choices, attitudes, those belong to us. The rest, the weather, others, the past, chance, are like the wind. Trying to control them is pointless despair. But understanding this division is the beginning of personal transformation. Epictetus, a slave who became one of history's greatest philosophers, said that things don't disturb us, but our judgments about them do. See the power in that. Pain may knock at the door, but you decide whether it enters as a guest or an invader. An insult may be thrown, but you decide whether it becomes a wound or a lesson. This is emotional control in its purest form. Not suppressing feelings, but knowing where to place them in the house of the soul. And then, without realizing it, you start reorganizing your mind. And the world changes too, slowly, in small gestures. It's easy to get lost in this labyrinth. Sometimes it feels like everything depends on us, and at the same time, nothing does. But when you quiet yourself inside, discernment appears. And with it comes the rarest power, knowing where to put your energy. Yelling at traffic or breathing deeply, lamenting a betrayal or learning from it, wearing yourself out over what's out of reach or perfecting what's within your grasp. That choice is yours. It always has been. And when you start making that choice, repeatedly, day after day, something new begins to emerge, a kind of serene strength, almost invisible, that starts to transform even how you deal with pain. Topic 3. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, turning affliction into strength. Pain arrives without warning. It doesn't ask permission or knock gently. It invades, sometimes through loss, other times through disappointment. On certain days, no reason is needed, just the emptiness, the weight of what's not understood. But Stoicism invites us to look at pain with different eyes, not as punishment, but as a demanding teacher. Pain isn't the enemy. It's a mirror. It shows what still hurts because there's attachment, illusion, or imbalance. And when you understand this, suffering loses its throne, because suffering is resisting pain, and resisting is what truly hurts. Think of a wound. If you pick at it, it festers. If you observe it with patience and care for it consistently, it heals. The mind works the same way. When we deny what we feel, we create inner abysses. When we embrace it with courage, we make space for healing. The Stoics didn't teach us to become stone, but to become strong like a rock that withstands the storm without losing its shape. Personal transformation requires facing pain. There's no shortcut, but in that process, pain stops being a haunting monster and becomes a step, a call to climb one more level within yourself. It's strange but liberating to understand that suffering is a choice, that, even in pain, it's possible to maintain dignity, clarity, Stoic virtue. It's not about ignoring what hurts, but about not drowning in the drama, about breathing deeply while the world crumbles and, with a thread of consciousness, reminding yourself, this too shall pass. Some sink at the first stumble. Others, with the same rubble, build a new foundation. What makes the difference? The way they look at pain, and that shift in perspective prepares the ground for something even more powerful, the present moment. Topic 4. The power of now. According to the Stoics, live in the present with reason. Time is a silent teacher. It watches us run to the past, vainly trying to fix what's already happened. Or it sees us anxious about the future as if peace lies there. But Stoicism, with its ancient wisdom, reminds us, the only real time is now, the pulsing moment. The present is the only thing truly under our control. And yet, how often are we absent from it? As if the mind refused to inhabit its own body. Stoic virtue is born precisely from this presence, from being whole in every gesture, every word, every choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should live as if each moment were the last, not with despair, but with fullness. When you become aware of this, even simple things gain color. The touch of the wind, the taste of food, the silence between two glances. The present reveals itself as a temple, and the now, an altar where you can offer your attention. The mental organization that emerges from this practice is transformative. There's no room for rumination when you're present. There's no anguish about what's to come when you're anchored in the now. And it's in this now that success is planted, one step at a time. The mind is like a wild horse. If you don't rein it in, it drags you. And where does it usually take you? To the guilt of yesterday or the anxiety of tomorrow. That's why the Stoics trained focus like sharpening a sword. With patience, daily practice, emotional discipline, short meditations, conscious breathing, observing thoughts without judgment. These are paths back to the now. And when you learn to live in this state of serene attention, a rare freedom is born. A clarity that lets you see choices clearly. And between one choice and another, a new power emerges. The ability to face what inevitably comes. The end. Topic 5. Memento Mori. How awareness of death cures anxiety. Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. At first, it sounds like a grim warning, a cold whisper of fate. But for the Stoics, this reminder wasn't a threat. It was liberation. When you truly understand that death is certain, everything non-essential starts to lose its shine. Vanity quiets, pride bows, and anxiety. It retreats because time becomes too precious to waste on what doesn't matter. Awareness of finitude forces us to live with more presence, more truth, more intention. Many flee the idea of death like fleeing their own shadow. But running doesn't delay it. It only imprisons. Those who live in fear of death don't live. They merely survive, trying to protect themselves from something inevitable. Epictetus taught that we shouldn't fear the end but a life poorly lived. There's something deeply transformative in this thought. Death isn't the enemy, it's a counselor. It reminds us not to postpone love, not to hold back hugs, not to save words that need to be said, and above all, not to delay the courage to be who you are. Stoic virtue flourishes in this barren ground, because when you accept death as part of the path, a kind of peace emerges that's hard to shake. You stop worrying so much about others' opinions, unattainable goals, toxic comparisons, and you start asking, what would I do if I knew I didn't have much time? That question, repeated sincerely, is a remedy for anxiety, a daily reminder that time is scarce but life can be dense. And in the space between birth and departure lies the chance to discover a new kind of strength, one that doesn't react but chooses with wisdom. Topic 6. The art of not reacting. Silencing the ego and reprogramming. Impulses. Reacting is easy. It's almost instinctive. Someone hurts you, and you hurt back. Something bothers you, and you explode. But mastering the art of not reacting is like turning lead into gold. The Stoics knew this. For them, true power isn't in winning arguments, but in not being dragged into them. It's in the gap between stimulus and response that freedom lies. And in that sacred space, the choice to give in to impulse or to cultivate Stoic virtue. A small choice that, repeated consciously, shapes destinies. Imagine the ego as a fierce dog, barking at every provocation. If you feed it, it grows. If you observe it without fear, it calms. Not reacting isn't weakness, it's restrained strength. It's knowing that not everything deserves your energy, your time, your peace. It's having enough emotional control not to let a moment of anger, pride, or neediness hijack you. A disorganized mind responds by instinct. An organized mind observes first, decides later. And when this observation becomes a habit, it reprograms impulses, and the world, little by little, stops having so much power over you. Of course, it's not easy. It's a practice that requires full attention, humility, and patience with your own stumbles. But the more you silence the ego, the more space there is to hear reason. And in that fertile silence, personal transformation is born. Gradually, you stop being a stormy sea and become a calm lake. Life keeps blowing winds, but you no longer sway with every breeze. And in this new state of presence, something changes. You stop watching your life from the outside and finally begin to write it from within. Topic 7. From spectator to author of your life. Stoic philosophy as a personal script. Living on autopilot is like watching a movie where you have no control over the script or role in the plot. The scenes repeat, the characters change, but the feeling is the same, just watching, not living. Stoicism, however, proposes a radical shift. It invites us to leave the audience, abandon the role of victim of circumstances, and pick up the pen of our own story. To become the author. And being the author isn't about controlling everything. It's about choosing how to act in the face of everything. It's writing with intention, even when the setting is unfavorable. Marcus Aurelius couldn't control betrayals, illnesses, or wars. But he controlled his thoughts, his attitudes, his principles. And that's what makes someone a Stoic author, living aligned with internal values, not external applause. When you choose virtue over vanity, courage over complaints, action over paralysis, the script changes. The world may not notice immediately, but something profound shifts within. Personal transformation doesn't begin when everything falls into place, but when you stop waiting for the world to improve to start moving. Taking on this protagonism requires an inner revolution, abandoning excuses, silencing distractions, mentally reorganizing what repeats without purpose. With every conscious choice, you reclaim a line of your script. With every thought you don't feed, a scene changes color. And when you realize it, what was a directionless drama starts to become a meaningful journey. The journey of someone who no longer needs life to be perfect to walk with firmness. Because the Stoic doesn't live to control fate, but to live with integrity, even when fate insists on testing their coherence. Topic 8. The fallacy of total control, how to accept without resigning. There's a subtle, almost seductive mistake that often dwells in the hearts of the most determined. The illusion that, with enough effort, everything can be controlled. Life, feelings, others, outcomes. But Stoicism shakes us with an uncomfortable yet liberating truth. Total control is a fallacy. You can make plans, but you can't control the winds. You can plant with care, but you can't command the harvest. And the more you try to master the untamable, the more you fuel frustration, anxiety, exhaustion. True strength lies in accepting what is, without losing the drive to act on what can be. Accepting isn't crossing your arms, it's adjusting the sails. Epictetus said that it's not events that affect us, but our opinions about them. When you understand this, a new kind of power is born. You stop fighting the inevitable and start flowing with it. And instead of wasting energy trying to change the uncontrollable, you turn inward. How can I react better? What is this situation asking of me? What can I learn from it? This stance isn't resignation, it's wisdom. It's mental organization in the face of chaos, Stoic virtue in practice. Of course, it's not always easy to discern when to persist or let go, but the daily practice of discernment sharpens this listening. Meditating on death, impermanence, the limits of the ego. All this trains the spirit not to get lost in futile battles. Accepting that we don't control everything returns control over what matters. Our character, our choices, our presence. And it's in this soil that the growth mindset flourishes, because acceptance opens space for what can truly be transformed. And then, in the inner calm, bolder questions arise. What has been guiding your choices? Pleasure or virtue? Topic 9. Virtue above pleasure. The new Stoic mental code. We live in an era where pleasure is sold as a compass. Food, likes, comfort, distraction. Everything is a tap away. But the Stoics, in their silent wisdom, always distrusted this frantic pursuit. For them, pleasure isn't the villain, but it's not the king either. It's a visitor, welcome but never in charge. True direction comes from virtue, from integrity, from coherence between what you think, say, and do. And this Stoic mental code, when internalized, transforms life into something deeper than merely pleasant. It makes it meaningful. Seneca said that the wise man doesn't bow to pleasure nor flee from pain, but walks between them with balance. And balance is a word few can sustain today. Because pleasure shouts, and virtue whispers. Pleasure promises instant relief. Virtue demands patience. But it's virtue that shapes character, sustains real success, strengthens emotional control. Trading instant pleasure for a greater purpose isn't losing, it's investing. It's saying no today to say yes to something bigger tomorrow. That's discipline, maturity, true freedom. This new mental code doesn't form overnight. It's a re-education, a mental reorganization that starts with small habits. Sleeping well even when the movie is good. Listening instead of interrupting. Being kind even when no one's watching. Each of these choices seems small but builds the foundation of a solid life. A life guided by values, not fleeting desires. And gradually you realize what seemed like sacrifice was, in fact, refinement, a purification. And when pleasure comes, it no longer commands, it accompanies. As a natural consequence of living with virtue. And in that fertile silence, the chance for something even more powerful emerges, rewriting your inner narrative. Topic 10. The power of choosing your inner narrative. External reality is often unchangeable, but how we interpret it, that's a powerful choice. The Stoics knew that events are neutral. It's we who color them with meaning, and that meaning forms the narrative we tell ourselves. Pain can be a tragedy or a call. An end can be a loss or a new beginning. And this narrative choice is where the power of personal transformation lies. Because changing the story you tell about yourself is often more revolutionary than changing the facts themselves. The human mind loves creating plots, and the problem isn't in narrating but in believing too much in poorly told versions. That voice saying you're not enough, you won't succeed, you always fail. It's not an oracle, just a badly written script repeated for too long. Stoicism proposes a new role, not the victim nor the impulsive hero, but the conscious author. Someone who observes, questions, rewrites, who silences destructive inner dialogues and cultivates words that build, who learns to organize their thoughts like organizing a sacred library. This rewriting starts slowly, sometimes with a simple phrase said to the mirror, other times with silence in the face of a sabotaging thought. Every micro-emotional choice, every adjusted narrative, strengthens the growth mindset the Stoics cultivated. Because when you change your inner story, your posture changes, your gaze changes, your decisions change, and then, even what seemed impossible starts to become accessible. Because you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do with what happened to you. And that choice, however silent, echoes outward, even in the face of others' judgments. Topic 11. Turn criticism into fuel. The Stoic and others' judgments. Living is exposing yourself, and exposing yourself inevitably means being judged. Criticism will come, fair or not, constructive or venomous, and at this point, many lose themselves. Another's word becomes a sentence. A negative comment becomes a death knell for self-esteem. But the Stoics, with the serenity of those who don't need to prove anything, teach us another path, turning criticism into fuel. It's not about ignoring everything or bowing to every opinion. It's about filtering, absorbing what teaches, discarding what only poisons. That's Stoic virtue in action, being unshakable inside, even when the world shouts outside. Seneca said that we shouldn't value praise or criticism more than they deserve, because both are fleeting, volatile, often distorted. When someone judges you, they reveal more about themselves than about you. So why let their projection dictate your worth? Emotional control is not getting drunk on applause or sinking under booze. It's listening with discernment. It's accepting that every criticism holds a grain of truth and tons of personal perspective. And the secret is just that. Gather the grain. Let the rest blow away. Turning criticism into fuel is an exercise in humility and courage. Humility to consider that there might be something to improve. Courage to move forward even when the criticism is unfair. This balance is what makes the soul resilient. Mentally organizing how we deal with others' opinions is an essential step in the journey of personal transformation. Because, in the end, those who live conditioned by what others think never truly live. And the Stoic knows the most important judgment is the one you make of yourself. And with that clarity, they face storms, not as punishment, but as refinement. Topic 12. The storm will pass. How Stoicism forges calm in crises. When life collapses, it's natural to want to flee. The heart races, the mind stumbles, the ground seems to slip from under your feet. Crises have that power. They test everything you claim to believe. But it's precisely in this unstable terrain that Stoicism reveals its rarest strength. It doesn't promise the wind will stop, but it teaches you to keep the helm steady. Calm in those moments isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of spirit. It's that inner silence that, even in chaos, chooses not to panic. A serenity that doesn't come from the world. It comes from within. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations while facing war, plague, betrayal. He didn't write for others. He wrote for himself, to remind himself that, even amid destruction, there was still a point of balance, his mind, his choice, his character. That's the great gift of Stoicism, the reminder that, even if you don't control what happens, you can control how you behave. And that's not small. It's everything, because in crises, the true gold of the spirit is forged, and the soul that endures the storm with dignity comes out the other side nobler, clearer, stronger. Of course, there will be fear. There will be days when faith feels like a weak candle in a gale, but even so, you can choose to stand, to breathe slowly, to observe, to act when it's time, to step back when necessary, and to trust the storm will pass. No pain lasts forever. No chaos remains eternal. And when it passes, you can look back and realize it was there, in the midst of the whirlwind, that you became more you, more stoic, more whole, more aware that even when everything seemed to collapse, there was a solid foundation within you, built with virtue, with presence, with purpose. Reprogramming your thoughts with Stoic philosophy. Now that you've walked this path with me, you may have noticed a silent truth. The world doesn't need to change for you to change. The revolution you seek begins in the space between a thought and your response to it. It begins when you choose not to shout, but to breathe. Not to sabotage yourself, but to embrace yourself. Not to react, but to understand. Stoicism isn't a shield against pain. It's a guide to cross it with firmness and dignity. And when this becomes part of your day, you start writing a new chapter, one where you are truly in charge. So now I ask you, with sincerity and intention, what in you still needs to be tamed? What part of your story deserves to be rewritten with more awareness, more lightness, more virtue? What thought do you need to let go of today to make room for your personal transformation? Don't keep it to yourself. Write it in the comments. Sharing is also an act of healing. And perhaps, in your words, someone will find what they needed to hear to start their own journey. If this video spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and keep walking with me. Here, each video is a step toward a freer mind, a stronger heart, a more conscious life. And in the first pinned comment, there's a gift, an ebook to accompany you on this daily journey of mental reprogramming, personal growth, and building a stoic life. Don't let it pass. Because you didn't get here by chance, and if you did, it's because you were ready. This translation preserves the full content and tone of the original text, as requested,